اللهم لك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد ما رضيت ولك الحمد بعد الرضا حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه. اللهم صل وسلم على حبيبك وعبدك المختار سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا سهلا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم بارك لنا في جمعنا هذا، اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مباركا مرحوما، واجعل تفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما، ولا تجعل فينا ولا منا ولا معنا شقيا ولا محروما. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما، واجعل علمنا حجة لنا لا علينا. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين. Oh Allah, we ask you to bless us with guidance and to fill our hearts with your abundant mercy and to fill our homes with your abundant mercy. Oh Allah, we ask you to better our character. Oh Allah, we ask you to unite our hearts upon goodness and upon benevolence. We ask you, oh Allah, to guide us to the best of actions and to the best of statements and best of deeds. Oh Allah, we ask you to protect us from the worst of actions and the worst of statements and the worst of deeds. Oh Allah, we ask you to bless us to follow in the footsteps of our dearly beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his beloved companions. Oh Allah, gather us with them in the shade that there's no shade but yours. Oh Allah, we ask you to help us navigate through every difficulty and every trial in life. Oh Allah, we ask you to make the best of our days the last of our days, and the best of our actions the last of our actions, and the best of all days the day that we meet you and you are pleased with us. Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen, wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, amma ba'd. I welcome you all to the Community Hub event. And for the past few weeks we've been going over the life of Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu ta'ala anhu ardah. And we said that his life, legacy and his story is longer than the other companions for a number of reasons. The first is because he is one of the Khulafa al-Rashideen, and many things happened during his lifetime. And he is actually one of the most notable companions of the Prophet ﷺ. So his life was documented in detail. And the other thing was that certain things, certain trials and fitan happened to the ummah during his lifetime and under his reign that we can learn a lot of lessons from. And we've covered a good portion of his life, and we spoke about his khilafah and about some of the things that he did differently than Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar. Before I proceed further, I want to ask the sisters, please in the back, if you're speaking, please focus with us, or you can go downstairs to the downstairs hall and speak over there. And we also ask the youth, Ustaz Uthman, Allah يخليك تحكي للشباب حواليك يروحوا تحت ولا يبطلوا كلام. جزاكم الله خير. So as we said, there's a lot of things that we can learn from the life of Sayyidina Uthman. What we're going to discuss today is actually introducing the subject of the complaints against Sayyidina Uthman. There was a number of intiqadat and criticisms that Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu had to deal with. And these criticisms led a group of people from this ummah to actually take his life and murder him radiyallahu ta'ala anhu arda. And one of the things that the life of Uthman teaches us, as we sort of discussed earlier on in his series, is no matter how great you are, there will always be criticisms. No matter how great you are, there will always be criticisms. Does this mean that we should not care about criticisms, or that we should reject criticisms altogether? Because الناس حينتقدوا, so who cares? The people are going to criticize anyway, so why should I care? No, this is not what it means. This is not how we should understand that statement. But it does mean something very important. Whenever we make a decision in life, it should be a principled decision that's not dictated by merely fear of criticism. ليست قراراتي صادرة عن مجرد خوف الانتقاد. I should never make a decision in life purely because I'm afraid of being criticized. The Prophet ﷺ teaches us that it's very important for the believer to have a principled approach to life. And he says sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, من التمس رضا الله بسخط الناس رضي الله تعالى عنه وأرضى الناس عنه. ومن التمس رضا الناس بسخط الله سخط الله عليه وأسخط عليه الناس. This is something our Prophet ﷺ teaches us. If you seek the approval of Allah and the contentment of Allah, even if that means the disapproval of people, then Allah will be pleased with you, and He will cause people, especially people who are fair-minded, to be pleased with your decision. But if you seek the approval of people, even if that means the disapproval of Allah, then neither Allah will be pleased with you, nor will people be pleased with you. This is something our Prophet ﷺ teaches us. But again, on the flip side, we want to always have this balanced approach to understanding the issues in life and issues in our deen. So on one end, we should never make decisions in life purely because we're afraid of criticism. But on the other end, our Prophet ﷺ teaches us the importance of caring about public perception. هل المؤمن يهتم بنظر الناس إليه ويهتم باجتناب مواطن الريبة? Should the mu'min be concerned about how others perceive him and about avoiding areas of doubt? Absolutely. This is something our Prophet ﷺ teaches us through his practice. As we mentioned before, the Prophet ﷺ one time was speaking with his wife, Safiya bint Huyay, in the darkness of night. And two of the Ansar passed by. And the Prophet ﷺ felt that they began speeding up when they noticed the Prophet speaking to a woman. So the Prophet ﷺ said to them, "Ala rislikuma." He said, "Stop right there. I am the Prophet, and this is my wife, Safiya." So then they said to the Prophet ﷺ, "Subhanallah ya Rasulullah, afika nashuk? Will we doubt you, O Prophet of Allah?" The Prophet ﷺ then said, "Inna shaytana yablughu min ibni Adam mablagh ad-dam, wa inni khashitu an yaqdhifa fi qulubikuma shay'a." The shaitan travels through the body of the son of Adam just as blood flows through the body. Meaning the shaitan is always in attempt to sway and distract and corrupt the sons of Adam. Just as blood is all encompassing of your body. So I did not want the shaitan to cast something in your heart. So no matter how reasonable, alright, so on one end, we should care about criticism. On the other end, we should realize no matter how good we are, there will always be criticism. And on the other end, we should recognize that it's important to pay attention to public perception. And the last point here is to always understand, no matter how reasonable you are, or you attempt to be, there will be those who stand against you. As Allah says to His Prophet, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. And we've made for every prophet antagonists, devils from among the human being and from among the jinn. This is the reality of life. So this is an intro into what the complaints against Uthman. And the complaints against Uthman are gonna open the door for us to discuss the life of one of the great companions, and that is Sayyidina Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. So we mentioned some of these complaints before, and we addressed them already. One of them was they complained that he didn't attend Badr. And we said the response to that was, the reason why he didn't go to Badr was because he was caring for the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ. She was ill and she ended up actually dying before the Prophet returned from Badr. And he didn't attend Bay'at al-Ridwan because Bay'at al-Ridwan was made for his sake when the Prophet worried that he was killed. Right? And then they said that he retreated in Uhud. And we said the response to that was in Surah Al-Imran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَوَلَّوْا مِنْكُمْ يَوْمَ الْتَقَى الْجَمْعَانِ إِنَّمَا اسْتَزَلَّهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ بِبَعْضِ مَا كَسَبُوا وَلَقَدْ عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ. Allah mentioned these people who retreated in Uhud among those whom He has given His full afu. And we said afu is different than maghfirah. Afu is complete acquittal. It's completely removing the sin from the books, as though it never happened. Maghfirah, someone wrongs you and asks for your forgiveness. Ighfir li. You say, alright, I know you did something wrong to me and I'm willing to overlook it. I'm going to forgive you for that mistake. But afu, we pray to Allah, O Allah, Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna. Afu means that I deal with you as though this action has never taken place to begin with. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ. So that's one of the things that Sayyidina Uthman was defended by one of the other companions, is that Allah has acquitted those who retreated in Uhud. And Sayyidina Uthman, as great as he was one of those who retreated in Uhud. And we said that another thing that they complained about Sayyidina Uthman was he changed certain things that Abu Bakr and Umar and the Prophet ﷺ himself practiced. And that was, for example, Qasr al-Salah fil Hajj fi Mina, to shorten the prayers in Mina. And the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr and Umar all practiced this, but Sayyidina Uthman did not do this. And we mentioned last week the reason why. Or one of the reasons why the scholars mention he didn't do it. Why did the Prophet and Abu Bakr and Umar do it? For the sake of travel. قَصَرُوا الصَّلَاةِ لِأَجْلِ السَّفَرِ. They shortened the prayer because of travel. Why didn't Sayyidina Uthman do it? We said that he was worried because there was many Bedouin Arabs among the Hujjaj in that year. And many of them were not learned. And they did not have teachers back in their homelands. And he was worried that when they constantly see him shortening the prayers and they're only coming to Mecca during Hajj, that they're going to think that Salat al-Dhuhr is 2 and Salat al-Asr is 2. And in fact, one of the narrations says that one of the Bedouin Arabs remarked this. He said, I have prayed with you the previous year and I saw you pray it 2, 2. Wallahi, I thought it was 2 and 2. You would think that how on earth would someone not know that Dhuhr is 4 and Asr is 4? How on earth would someone be ignorant of this? Well, even to this day, some of the basics and fundamentals of our deen, people are ignorant about it. So anyway, that happened during that time as well. This was another, they complained about his compilation of the Quran, and that's a big thing. We discussed it last week as well. Sayyidina Uthman, when he compiled the Quran, he united the ummah upon one script, upon one mushaf. It was all the same. The mushaf of Uthman ibn Affan, with the khat of the people of Quraysh, the script and the writing style of the people of Quraysh. And he burned all other copies. And this raised a lot of controversy. So some people complained about him, that and the way he compiled the Quran. And there's answers to that can be answered at another time. One of the things that they complained about was his mistreatment of Sayyidina Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. They said awful things about Sayyidina Uthman, that there was a conflict between Abu Dharr and Uthman, and that Uthman kicked Abu Dharr out of Medina, and he actually cut him off from the financial aid and the stipend that all of the elder companions were given. And this is completely false. And this is what we're going to discuss today. So, but before we getting into the life of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, one of the major factors, this is very important here, what led to the fitna during the time of Sayyidina Uthman that continued during the time of Sayyidina Ali and then during the Khilafah of Sayyidina Muawiyah? One of the major factors that played into this fitna was the change in lifestyle. When the great Muslim expansion happened, many people entered into Islam. And the Muslim Ummah, because of the victories they had in Persia and against the Romans, became very wealthy. And a lot of money came to the Khilafah. So a change in lifestyle. One, the quality of people that were a part of this ummah changed. Because it wasn't limited to khiyar al-sahaba anymore. No, there was tabi'een now. And some of these tabi'een, among them were munafiqeen. And some of them were ahl bid'ah and ahl dalal among these tabi'een. So this fitna came because of a change of lifestyle. The quality of people, one, changed. Number two is the great affluence that came with the Muslim expansion. كثر المال وكثر الخير, and the wealth came in abundance. And they say money changes people. Does money change people? We're going to speak about this a little bit, insha'Allah ta'ala. Yes, some people. You know what? This is something that the elder companions realized. Sayyidina Abdul Rahman ibn Auf was one of the wealthy companions. And he lived during this time period. One time, he was brought a plate of food. أُتِيَ بِطَعَامٍ وَكَانَ صَائِمًا. And then he began reflecting. He said, قُتِلَ مُصْعَبْ بْنُ عُمَيْرٍ وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ مِنِّي. Mus'ab was killed and he was much better than me. كُفِنَ فِي بُرْدَةٍ. He was buried in a cheap cloak. He didn't have anything to be buried with, nothing fancy. When you covered him, the upper part of his body, the lower part of his body would be exposed. And when you cover the lower part of his body, the upper part of his body, the cloak wasn't even big enough to cover him fully. This is how Sayyidina Mus'ab bin Umayr passed away. And then he went on to say, وَقُتِلَ حَمْزَةٌ وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ مِنِّي ثُمَّ بُسِطَ لَنَا مِنَ الدُّنْيَا مَا بُسِطَ. He said, and Hamza was killed, and Hamza was much better than me. And then we were given a great affluence from this dunya. أعطينا من الدنيا ما أعطينا وقد خشينا أن تكون حسناتنا عجلت لنا ثم جعل يبكي حتى ترك الطعام. We've been given of this dunya so much that I'm afraid, Sayyidina Abdurrahman ibn Auf is saying about himself, I'm afraid that we're getting all of our reward for our sacrifices in this dunya. And there's going to be nothing for us on the Day of Judgment. And he began crying. That's the introspection that the companions had. But anyway, they lived a great affluence. And affluence could be very dangerous. Could be. Not necessarily. It could be very great, or it could be very dangerous. The Prophet ﷺ said, I do not fear for you poverty. He said, فَوَاللَّهِ مَا الْفَقْرُ أَخْشَى عَلَيْكُمْ ولكن أخشى عليكم أن تبسط عليكم الدنيا كما بسطت على من كان قبلكم فتنافسوها كما تنافسوها فتهلككم كما أهلكتهم. Prophet ﷺ said, I'm not afraid that you will be an impoverished nation. I'm afraid that the opportunities of this worldly life will be open in abundance before you. And that you will begin chasing after this worldly life, just as those before you chased after it. And that it ruins you as it ruined them. What is greater? The test of gratitude or the test of patience? The scholars, they mention that the test of gratitude is far more difficult than the test of patience. What is the test of gratitude? You're given so many blessings, and then you need to use those blessings in a way that is responsible, in a way that's pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's giving the rights of Allah and giving the rights of the creation of Allah. It's very difficult. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَقَلِيلٌ مِنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. Few of my servants are grateful servants, meaning are able to look at an abundance of blessings and use it in a way that pleases Allah. Because when you have that wealth, you have so many options. So many ways you could disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when you're tested with patience, the only thing you could do is either deal with your reality and be patient, but it could be a very difficult test. It doesn't mean that it's an easy test. Being tested with extreme hunger and not having anything to eat. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-kufri wal-faqr. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from poverty and from disbelief. Because poverty can be an extreme test. Very difficult test. So it can be a very difficult test. But far greater than it is the test of gratitude. It might look glamorous on the outside, but that's part of the test. It looks so glamorous that it could cause the person to fall into ghafla so easily. Whereas the test of patience is so difficult, the only thing the person could do is raise the hands to the heavens and say, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, oh Allah help me. Anyway, going back to our subject. The Prophet ﷺ said that the fitna of this ummah is in wealth. Inna likulli ummatin fitna, wa inna fitnata ummati al-mal. This is a hadith, authentic hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, every ummah has a test. And the test of my ummah will be in affluence. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in this Quran, in his book. He says, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ fitna. Your wealth and your offspring are a trial, are a test. And in fact, one time the Prophet ﷺ, Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein came running towards the Prophet ﷺ, and he hugged them. And he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِنَّ الْوَلَدَ مَبْخَلَةٌ مَجْبَنَةٌ. The child or the offspring cause mabkhala, they cause greed. When you have a child, it makes you very haris ala al-mal. Oh, should I give a donation? No, I should keep it for my kids. Alright? Mabkhalatun, majbana. Should I go out and travel, or should I go here, or should I go out there? No, I don't want to put my life at risk. I don't want to put my livelihood at risk. I can't take any risks. It makes you a very fearful person. Inna al-walada mabkhalatun majbana. But now here the question is, alright, the Quran says it's a fitna. Does that mean, that means I don't want wealth and I don't want children? Does that mean that Islam teaches us that these are things that we should avoid? No, that's not how we should understand these things. No, absolutely not. But we should understand that if you are going to go down that road, if Allah puts these things in your life, that we should appreciate that we're being tested. And we should pay attention to this. And we should never lose sight of this. That the child is min zinatil hayatid dunya. One of the most beautiful things you could be blessed in this life. But the child has a haqq You have a haqq, that child has a haqq upon you, and you have a duty to Allah in that child. It's a very big responsibility. We don't run away from responsibilities. But I need to appreciate it is a responsibility. All right. So anyway, is there any truth in the statement that money changes people? The Quran answers that. وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. It absolutely changes a lot of people. And the ones who are saved from being changed for the worst are truly special and unique people. And if Allah gives someone that fadl, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. As a group of the poor companions came to the Prophet, and they said to him, ذَهَبَ أَهْلُ الدُّثُورِ بِالْأُجُورِ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. They said, O Prophet of Allah, the people of wealth and affluence have beat us all to all the reward. They complain to the Prophet, they pray like we pray, they fast like we fast, and they do the good deeds, but we don't have the money to give to good causes like they have. The Prophet ﷺ then gave them advice how they can try to catch up, how they can try to fill that void. But then the Prophet ﷺ instructed, ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. If someone's really able to stay upon their deen and upon righteousness and piety, then this is from the grace of Allah He gives to whomever He wills from His servants. So anyway, this is a very important realization, that part of this trial that happened during the time of Uthman was because of the change of lifestyle. And the quality of people in the ummah at that time became less. When you have small group, all very pious, it's different than when you have a huge group that has some pious people and has some awful people. Right? So this is part of the fitna, change in lifestyle. And the affluence that came to the ummah of Muhammad ﷺ during this time. Very important realization. هل الصحابة كلهم سواء على مرتبة واحدة? Are all the companions of the Prophet on one level? No, absolutely not. They're not on one level. Not every companion of the Prophet is like Abu Bakr or like Umar or Uthman. No, there's al-Badriyun, there is as-Sabiqun al-Awwalun. There are the people who converted to Islam very early on during Mecca. There are those who sacrificed their wealth and their lives, and there are those who died as martyrs. And there are those like, as Sayyidina Umar mentions, he narrates the story of one of the companions, that he had a problem. His issue was with one of the kaba'ir. And this kabira was drinking. He's one of the companions of the Prophet. He did good things, but he had a problem. It was a drinking problem. This is one of the companions of the Prophet. Is he at the same level as Abu Bakr? No, of course he's not. One time he was brought to the Prophet ﷺ فَجِيءَ بِهِ يَوْمًا إِلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم وَقَدْ شَرِبَ الْخَمْرِ فَقَالَ رَجُلٌ اللَّهُمَّ الْعَنْهُ. One of the companions present, he cursed him. He cursed this man. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, لَا تَلْعَنُوهُ فَإِنَّهُ يُحِبُّ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. Prophet ﷺ said, don't curse him. This man, he loves Allah and His Prophet. How could he love Allah and His Prophet and drink? Look, his love is not the same as Abu Bakr's love and Umar's love. But does that mean that he no longer has love of Allah and His Prophet in his heart at all? No, when he does the kabira, that love becomes weak. That ma'siyah takes over. Yes, there's a weakness there, a clear weakness. Sometimes that hawa and that whims gets the better of him. And this happens to all of us, to varying degrees. Varying degrees. But does that mean Sahib al-Kabira is no longer Muslim? He's a kafir? No, he's a Muslim. He's a muwahhid. بس يرتكب الكبائر وهو he commits the major sins and he needs a lot of work and needs a lot of repentance. But still, this is one of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they're not all at one level. This is very important to realize. And in another narration of the hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لا تقولوا هكذا لا تعينوا عليه الشيطان. Anyway, getting into, we explained the reality of the time. Getting into a little bit about the life of Sayyidina Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, quickly, and how that relates to what we're speaking about in the life of Uthman. Sayyidina Abu Dharr met the Prophet ﷺ and asked about the message. And when it was presented to him, he immediately accepted Islam. Sayyidina Abu Dharr, they say, was the 5th person to enter into Islam. He is من السابقون الأول من السابقين الأولين. He's from the first companions. And he was not from the people of Mecca. He is the first non-Mecci to become Muslim. And he was the fifth male, or the fifth overall, some of them say sixth, to enter into Islam. Where was he from? Sayyidina Abu Dharr was from a tribe called Ghifar. And there was two tribes that were close to one another. They were known in a very infamous way among the Arab. That is Ghifar and Aslam. And these two tribes were known for thievery and highway robbery. They would attack caravans and they would steal from people. They were highway robbers. This is a very tough tribe, very wicked. Sayyidina Abu Dharr, that's how he grew up, that's who he grew up among. Sayyidina Abu Dharr, a few things about his personality. Sayyidina Abu Dharr, he grew up as a loner. From his childhood, he was that type of person who would be alone for a lot of time. He would go out in the wilderness and he would hunt, and he was a very tough person. He was a very rugged person. They describe him physically, he was very tall and he was extremely thin. He was very tall and he was extremely thin. The Prophet ﷺ said that Abu Dharr is a very blunt person. So he is a loner and he's very blunt. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said about him, مَا أَضَلَّتِ الْخَضْرَاء وَلَا أَقَلَّتِ الْغَبْرَاء أَصْدَقْ مِنْ أَبِي بَكْرٍ لَهْجَةً. Alright, the Prophet ﷺ said that the heavens, مَا أَضَلَّتِ الْخَضْرَاء, that the clouds never covered and the desert never contained anyone that is more honest and blunt than Sayyidina Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. He's very honest. When he speaks something, he speaks it from a place of honesty. Pure honesty. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He just says it as it is. That's who the type of person he was. His upbringing led to this reality. Very blunt person. إِذَا تَكَلَّمْ صَدَقَ فِي الْكَلَامِ رَضِي مَنْ رَضِي وَسَخِطْ مَنْ سَخِطْ. That's who he was. Whoever likes it, likes it. Whoever doesn't like it, doesn't like it. People have different personalities. Sayyidina Abu Dharr was that type of person. And this came out in his Islam. When he became Muslim, what did he do? Sayyidina Abu Dharr, the Prophet ﷺ advised Sayyidina Abu Dharr, "Uktum hadha al-amr." Keep it secret. It's still very early. There was only 4 people before him who were Muslim. "Uktum hadha al-amr. Warji' ila baladik. فَإِذَا بَلَغَكَ ظُهُورُنَا فَأَقْبِلْ." Go back to your people. When you hear that this matter has spread, then come back. But then Abu Dharr said the following, وَالَّذِي بَعَثَكَ بِالْحَقِّ لَأَصْرُخَنَّ بَيْنَ أَظْهُرِهِمْ. By the one who sent you with this truth, I will announce it publicly among everyone. I have to say it. This is the truth. I'm not afraid to say the truth. So Abu Dharr, what did he do? He went to the mosque and he announced to the people of Quraysh. He said, "Ya ma'ashara Quraysh, inni ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah." All people of Quraysh. And again, Abu Dharr, when he came to become Muslim, he came in the darkness of night. And he needed to hide because he was from Ghifar. Ghifar was a tribe that wasn't welcome in Mecca because they were highway robbers. And we're going to discuss in a minute, he stayed in Mecca for an entire month, living in secrecy, hiding during the day and walking about trying to figure out where is this person who claims to be a prophet of Allah, until he finally found the Prophet ﷺ. So he stayed like this for an entire month. And he went and he announced his Islam like this. And the kuffar of Quraysh, of course, they didn't know who's this person. He's not even from the people of Mecca. They attacked him. And they began beating him and beating him and beating him. Until someone said, وَيْلَكُمْ تَقْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا مِنْ غِفَارٍ. Are you going to kill a man from Ghifar? Your trade routes are through Ghifar's neighborhood. If you kill a man from Ghifar, they're going to start attacking your caravans. So then they stopped. What did Sayyidina Abu Dharr do? He did the same thing the next day. And they did the same thing. Until they realized, okay, they probably shouldn't kill him because it's going to hurt them. And then he did it a third day. And the same thing happened again. Until he finally listened to the command of the Prophet ﷺ, or he listened to the instructions of the Prophet ﷺ, and he went back to his people and he stayed with them many years giving them da'wah. Sayyidina Abu Dharr was that type of person among the companions who never worshipped an idol. He never worshipped an idol. Radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wa ardah. And Sayyidina Abu Dharr, was so true in his desire that his brother Unais came back from visiting Mecca, and he told him that there's someone in Mecca that's saying the same things you're saying. Because Abu Dhar was saying that worshipping idols is foolish. And he would tell his people, don't do this. And then when he heard that Muhammad ﷺ was calling to the same message, he went and tried to search for Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ. As we said, he stayed in Mecca for an entire month. How did he live for that entire month? There was a hadith in which Sayyidina Abu Dhar was asked, فَمَنْ كَانَ يُطْعِمُكَ فَمَنْ كَانَ يُطْعِمُكَ How did you live for this entire month? You've been in Mecca for a month. Who was feeding you? You're not from here, you're a traveler. He said, مَا كَانَ لِي طَعَامٍ إِلَّا مَاءُ زَمْزَمٍ I had nothing except Zamzam water. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إنها مباركة إنها طعام طعم It is a blessed water. It is a water that if you eat with the intention of quenching your hunger or your thirst, it'll suffice you. إنها طعام طعم Another hadith he said إنها طعام طعم وشفاء سقم It will fill you and it'll also cure you. That's the water of Zamzam. In fact, after this month period, Sayyidina Abu Dhar said that I've only been living off of Zamzam and I've actually gained weight. So that's the blessing of Zamzam. And that's coming from the sincerity of this man's intention. So Sayyidina Abu Dhar was that person. He was the first da'i in the history of Islam outside of Mecca. And it's very important to note something here. So we said Sayyidina Abu Dhar was very honest. And he was very blunt. And he was very rough. And often these type of qualities don't work in da'wah. We say you shouldn't give da'wah like this. You shouldn't be rough, right? You should have وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَنْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. We tell you, people, be gentle. You need, so you can win people's hearts over. But Abu Dhar was not a gentle person. But look at the unique thing here. He went back to his people and he gave them da'wah. And he stayed with them years, giving them da'wah. Until he came back to the Prophet ﷺ. First he came back to him with half of the tribe having become Muslim. And then later on, after time passed, the whole tribe of Ghifar and the whole tribe of Aslam all became Muslim at the hands of Abu Dhar al-Ghifari. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua for them. He said, Ghifar, غَفَرَ اللَّهُ لَهُمْ وَأَسْلَمْ سَالَمَهَا اللَّهُ Prophet ﷺ made dua for them both. Because they entered into Islam without any war. They weren't forced into Islam. They weren't compelled to become Muslim. There was no confrontation. They came to Islam purely through the efforts of da'wah of Abu Dhar. You might ask yourself, well, how did they become Muslim if he was such a rough and blunt and mean person? They were just like him. And that's why they say, Ahlu Makkah adra bishi'abiha. Sometimes the best person to give da'wah is a person from among the people. The person from among a particular tribe or a particular nation, he knows how to speak to his people. He knows how to speak to their language. Sometimes it might be a little bit rough, but he knows how to speak to their hearts. And because they're rough too, they accept roughness, right? So it depends. You need the hikmah, who are you talking to? But the point is, one of the things we learn from the life of Sayyidina Abu Dhar is never judge a person by one deed of his. Someone who met Abu Dhar and saw this bluntness and this difficulty. We meet people like this all the time. When you see someone like this, you might, I don't like this person. This person, seems like too rough for me. Is too intense. It doesn't seem like he's a good. Don't judge a person by one deed of his. You see, Abu Dhar, on one end he was rough and he was blunt, but on the other end, Allah, because of his sincerity, gave him an ability to give da'wah that would penetrate the hearts of people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him this ability, but on the other end, one of his other characteristics of his personality was he wasn't fit to lead others. Yes, he's good for da'wah. Yes, he's good for honesty. Yes, he's good for zuhud. Is he good for qiyada and leadership? No, he's not good for leadership. And this is something the Prophet ﷺ teaches us. If you have one thing, you might not have a bunch of other things. It doesn't mean that if you're a good person, you need to be good at everything. This is a very important thing to understand. You might find someone who's a very good and pious person, but when it comes to narration of hadith, like our scholars of hadith teach us, هذا رجل صالح صادق تقي لكن لا يحسن الرواية. He cannot narrate hadith. They mentioned this to us in the science of transmission of hadith. That he's a good person, he's a righteous person. But can you rely upon him in transmitting traditions and statements of the Prophet authentically? No. هذا ليس شأنه. شأن العبادة والزهد والرقائق. That's what he's good for. Right? Sayyidina Abu Dharr was the same way. His bluntness made him unfit to lead others. And it's something the Prophet ﷺ told him during his lifetime. Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Abu Dharr, innaka da'if, wa innaha amana. How is he da'if? The Prophet ﷺ said, oh Abu Dharr, you are weak. What does this mean, you are weak? We see so much strength and bravery in Abu Dharr, so much honesty. Why would the Prophet say he's weak? Meaning, you are weak in this affair, weak in leadership. أنت ضعيف في هذا الشأن. لست قائدا. You're not a leader. You are not fit to lead others. So, وإنها أمانة. It's a great trust. And وإنها يوم القيامة خزي وندامة. On the day of judgment, it's going to be a source of great regret. إلا من أخذها بحقها. Except the one who takes it and gives leadership its right. وأدى الذي عليه فيها. And gave his responsibility towards it in full. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ turns to Sayyidina Abu Dharr and he said the following: Ya Abu Dharr, كيف أنت إذا كانت عليك أمراء يستأثرون بالفيء? O Abu Dharr, how will you conduct yourself if you will be led by umara, by leaders, who will يستأثرون بالفيء, the spoils of war, they will keep it, they will not handle it or dispense it properly. They will not dispense the spoils of war, the wealth that the state accrues, they will not dispense it properly. They will not distribute it fairly. Right? What will you do, O Abu Dharr, when you have these types of leaders? So then he told the Prophet ﷺ, إِذَنْ وَالَّذِي بَعَثَكَ بِالْحَقِّ أَضْرِبُ بِسَيْفِهِ حَتَّى أَلْحَقَ بِهِ. He said, إِذَنْ وَالَّذِي بَعَثَكَ بِالْحَقِّ أَضْرِبُ بِسَيْفِهِ حَتَّى أَلْحَقَ بِهِ. He said, I will strike this sword. If that happens, I will use the sword and I will strike until I am done. In other words, I am done. Until I am done. So he said to him, أَفَلَا أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى مَا هُوَ خَيْرٌ مِّن ذَلِكَ. You want me to give you advice that's better than this, O Abu Dharr? Prophet saying to Abu Dharr, he said, اصبر حتى تلقاني. Be patient until you're reunited with me. This was the advice of the Prophet to Abu Dharr. O Abu Dharr, when you see a lot of corruption, a lot of things that you cannot understand and you cannot handle, what should you do? Be patient until you meet me. This was a Prophet's advice, not a general advice. He didn't say this to the whole ummah. He's saying this to who? Abu Dharr, who was a person who was not fit to be in a leadership position. Now, this is another thing about his personality. Abu Dharr was a man bound to be misunderstood. That's who his personality was. He was bound to be misunderstood by so many people because of how tough he was in following the truth. What does this mean? He says the following. One time, Sayyidina Abu Dharr, one time Sayyidina Abu Dharr, later on during his lifetime, he saw things that he did not like. One of these things was he saw that the umara were misusing the funds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given. So he said the following. Where is it? He said, where is it? Okay. So one of the things that happened was كان أبو ذر زاهدا وكان يقرع عمال عثمان ويتلو عليهم والذين يكنزون الذهب والفضة ولا ينفقونها في سبيل الله فبشرهم بعذاب أليم ويراهم يتسعون في المراكب والملابس حين وجدوا فينكر ذلك عليهم. This is something that Al-Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, he mentions about Sayyidina Abu Dharr. Sayyidina Abu Dharr, he said, he would say to the Ummal of Uthman and the employees of Uthman, he would start reciting to them, وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ وَالْفِضَّةَ وَلَا يُنْفِقُونَها فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَبَشِّرْهُم بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. Those who hoard wealth and keep it for themselves, await them a severe punishment. and he's threatening them, and he's disturbing them. And why is he doing this? Because he's seeing them indulge in the pleasures of this dunya. So Sayyidina Abu Dharr was the person bound to be misunderstood. One time, Sayyidina Abu Dharr in the Battle of Tabuk lagged behind. And the reason why he lagged behind was because his camel was very weak. It did not have the strength to keep up with the rest of the army of the Prophet ﷺ. So after some time, they saw a man running towards them in the desert, carrying his provisions. And the Prophet ﷺ and the companions were looking at this sight, a man running in the desert, carrying provisions. And each person is saying, who is this person? Some of them started shouting out different names. The Prophet ﷺ said, Kun Aba Dharr. Kun Aba Dharr. Be Abu Dharr. The Prophet expected it to be Abu Dharr. And it was indeed Abu Dharr. And then the Prophet ﷺ said the following, Rahimallahu Aba Dharr, Yamshi wahdahu, wa yamutu wahdahu, wa yub'athu wahdahu. Abu Dharr was a man bound to be misunderstood. The Prophet said, may Allah have mercy upon Abu Dharr. He's a person who walks alone. He's coming to us in the middle of the desert alone. He's the only companion with that guts and grit to be running in the middle of the desert, carrying his provisions. He couldn't keep on riding his camel because his camel was too weak. He was running in the middle of the desert. He said, he's walking alone, he will die alone, and he will be resurrected alone. That's what Abu Dharr was. A man bound to be misunderstood by others because of who he was. The other thing is Sayyidina Abu Dharr, and it's also an important one, was very literalist in some of his interpretations of the teachings of our deen. He interpreted certain ayat and ahadith that it is not allowed for a person to keep in his possession more than he needs for his day. That's who he was. He was Zahid. For a period of time, he was under the rule of Sayyidina Muawiyah in Ash-Sham, while Sayyidina Muawiyah was governor. Of course, he died during the Khilafah of Uthman. He didn't see Muawiyah as a Khalifa. He was in Ash-Sham, and he would go to the Masjid al-Aqsa every day for prayers, and he'd be wearing the same exact clothes. And some of the people, they knew he was one of the senior companions. They wanted to give him clothes as a gift. Here, take these clothes and wear them. Of course, he had one pair of clothes, but he would always clean those clothes. He wasn't being dirty. Don't misunderstand. But he was a zahid. He didn't care about his, having too much material possessions. So they tried to give him a gift. But he said, I don't need it. Go find someone who's really in need and give him that clothes. I don't want it. That's who he was. And Sayyidina Muawiyah could not take it how Abu Dharr was so vocal in criticizing him and criticizing the leaders and criticizing those who had wealth and affluence. He was criticizing people left and right. And no one could take it because Sayyidina Abu Dharr was a senior companion. Who's going to speak out against him? They know he's the fifth companion to become Muslim. Who's going to say anything to him? He's min kibar al-sahaba. He had a level of respect and clout, and people listened to him. So Sayyidina Muawiyah sent a letter to Sayyidina Uthman. He said to him to the effect that I can't take Abu Dharr. I cannot handle him. He keeps on criticizing me and criticizing my work. And the reason why he was criticizing Sayyidina Muawiyah is because of the affluence and the wealth and the way that it was being used. So that's his understanding. He felt that if you kept wealth in your possession and hoarded, he considered this hoarding wealth. But of course the verse doesn't mean this. وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ الْفِضَّةَ doesn't mean. The one who hoards the wealth and doesn't give it zakat. That's what the verse means. But he had a literalist interpretation. Doesn't mean that he had to be right on everything. And some people, they might be stringent in certain truths. That might be good for them, but it's not necessarily the whole truth. But still, it doesn't take away that this is a righteous person, a pious person. This was his understanding. Now, Sayyidina Abu Dharr returned to Medina. This is what happened. So he left Sham upon the order of who? Uthman. Uthman told Abu Dharr, come back to Medina, live in Medina. Because Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu could not handle him because he was creating tension and creating conflict. And the Prophet said this is going to happen to you, Abu Dharr. إِنَّكَ ضَعِيفٌ وَإِنَّهَا أَمَانَةٌ وَإِنَّهَا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ خِزْيٌ وَنَدَامَةٌ. You're not the type of person that works in that type of reality. So Sayyidina Uthman called him back to Medina. But then he came back to Medina, and Medina was different than it was during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. He started seeing the wealth and the spoils coming from defeating the Romans and defeating the Persians. And he didn't like what he was seeing. It wasn't wrong in and of itself, but he held himself to high standards. And that's what happens sometimes, with people who are very pious, very ahead. They hold themselves to different standards than the average person. For them, missing Salat Sunnah might be a very big deal. But for someone else, if they pray Salat Sunnah, oh mashallah, I have a great day, I prayed Sunnah today, I prayed Witr, and I went to the masjid, and mashallah, Sayyid al-Muttaqeen, right? Other people, if he doesn't read his wird from the Quran, and he's not doing his qiyam, and he's not fasting, he considers himself committing a major sin. That's the standards that Abu Dharr was upon. He had a very different standard. So anyway, he returned to Medina, and the same thing happened. He started criticizing people, and he started saying that you have abandoned the path that the Prophet ﷺ set for us during his lifetime, and you guys have been taken away by the dunya. And he started criticizing people, and Sayyidina Uthman had a meeting with Sayyidina Abu Dharr, and he told him the following. He said to him that if you wish, you can stay living in Medina, or if you'd like, you can live nearby in a city or in a place in an area close by. That way you can benefit from being close to Medina, but at the same time, you don't have to deal with the conflict that you're facing with being in a city. Sayyidina Abu Dharr was that type of person who needed to be alone, right? That's who he was. He had difficulty interacting with things because he wasn't the type of person who's going to stay quiet. When he sees something wrong, he's going to say it, right? He's going to call you out for it. So Sayyidina Uthman, did he kick him out of Medina? No, he didn't. This is very important to note this. One of the complaints against Sayyidina Uthman was that he kicked Sayyidina Abu Dharr out of Medina. No, khayyarahu. But he knew that, he hinted that perhaps for Abu Dharr's personality, living outside of the city might be more comforting for him. He hinted towards it. And Sayyidina Uthman promised him that the stipend that he got will continue. What is this stipend? That during the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, حدد أموال أو يعني حدد أموال معينة تدفع لكبار الصحابة. That he designated certain wealth that is taken in by the treasury be given to the companions. Actually, Sayyidina Abu Bakr made it even for everyone, including him. They all got the same amount. He didn't get more because he was Khalifa, no. Whatever the treasury had, he would divide it among the companions. Sayyidina Umar said, how can I make someone who is a Badri or min as-sabiqin al-awwalin at the same level as someone who became Muslim after Fath Makkah? They can't be the same. So he gave them in varying levels. He gave Ummahat al-Mu'mineen the most, and then after that, the companions who believed earliest, based on the time that they accepted Islam, he gave the Badriyun a certain amount of, these are stipends. He gave them a stipend so that they can live off of the treasury from the state. In any case, this was also given to Abu Dharr as he was min kibar al-Sahaba. And he would get this. So he went, and where did he live? He lived in a place called Al-Rabda. And this, if you look it up, it is 200 kilometers northeast of Medina. 200 kilometers, it's pretty far out, But anyway, it's not a city. It's more like a rest stop. You can go look it up. Sayyidina Abu Dharr is actually buried there today. It's still known in Al-Rabda that he is buried in that area outside of Medina. Now, something very interesting about Sayyidina Abu Dharr, and this happened at the very end of his life. Sayyidina Abu Dharr was told by the Prophet ﷺ that he will die alone. How did he die, Sayyidina Abu Dharr? He passed away in the year 32 after Hijrah. And he, in this very remote location, hardly anyone lived there, told his wife to wash his body. If he was to pass away, wash his body and shroud him and take him out to the path where the caravans usually pass through. And there was a caravan coming, I believe it was from Yemen, and among them was Sayyidina Abdullah bin Mas'ud. Sayyidina Abdullah bin Mas'ud was the 6th person to become Muslim. He was the one who became Muslim right after Abu Dharr. And Sayyidina Ibn Mas'ud saw this woman standing at the side of the road, waving to the caravan. And they saw the body, and they said, "Who is this person?" So then she told them, "It is one of the companions of the Prophet, Abu Dharr al-Ghifari." And all of them began making dua for him. And Ibn Mas'ud actually led the prayers upon him, and they buried him in al-Rabada. Allah willed this for Sayyidina Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. And this is تصديقا لوعد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يمشي وحده ويموت وحده ويبعث وحده. He will be resurrected in his own category. This type of person, very unique person. He has a special reward for him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the life of Abu Dharr. Again, connecting it with Sayyidina Uthman. How does this have to do with the life of Sayyidina Uthman? Because the end of Abu Dharr's life had to do with the conflicts that arose during the Khilafah of Sayyidina Uthman. Sayyidina Abu Dharr was criticizing, but he wasn't criticizing the Khilafah of Uthman. He was criticizing the affluence and the dunya that he was worried the companions were getting caught up in. He didn't like it because he had different standards for himself. كان زاهدا في الدنيا. He didn't care about these things. لكن هل كان منتقدا لخلافة سيدنا عثمان? No, he didn't accuse the Khilafah of Uthman. Some people, they use this conflict between Sayyidina Abu Dharr and Uthman to say that Abu Dharr was one of the people who was the adversaries of Sayyidina Uthman. And you'll find this even in the books of Shia, that they reference Sayyidina Abu Dharr and they actually refer to him as one of the adversaries of Uthman. ليس كذلك. Sayyidina Uthman did not wrong him. There was no conflict here. But Sayyidina Abu Dharr had a special case because of his personality. And Sayyidina Uthman dealt with him in the most delicate ways possible, seeking his interests and the interests of the rest of society. Right? So, there's so many lessons that we can learn from this beautiful story of this great companion Sayyidina Abu Dharr. And so many lessons we can learn in how Sayyidina Uthman dealt with this issue. And this is one of those accusations. Next week, inshaAllah ta'ala, we'll conclude with what happened after those accusations. What happened when the group of this ummah actually took the steps to siege Medina and to siege the house of Sayyidina Uthman and actually kill Sayyidina Uthman and murder him wrongfully. We're going to discuss this inshaAllah ta'ala next week. And with that, we will end the lessons from the life of Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wa ardah. Allahumma ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.